Hello and welcome to Situation Room's podcast on elections and state of the nation. My name is Agiampe Onyema, and today we are going to be talking about an issue that is very, very dear to our hearts in Nigeria. Today, our episode is going to be on voter apathy and its implication for our youthful population. And this is because Nigerians under the age of 35 actually make up more than 70% of our population. But interestingly, when it's time to vote, they seem to be the least interested and seem to be the least participating demography in Nigeria. Why does this matter and what can we do about it? So today we are speaking with a program management specialist and a governance expert, Mr. Sunday Alao. He's going to be sharing his thoughts on this topic and what we can do as we look forward to 2027 general elections. So Sunday, you are welcome to today's episode of our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
So, just to set the scene on this conversation, what is voter apathy? What do we mean when we say voter apathy?
Thank you for inviting me. I think generally we can characterize voter apathy as the reluctance of citizens to participate in the electoral process. Because again, for every democracy, one key ingredient is elections. And for elections to be what it's supposed to be, citizens must willfully participate in the process. So if there is a drop in the interest of citizens to participate in that democratic process by virtue of voting, then we say there is apathy.
Yeah, and I think that was something that we noticed in the very recent Anambra governorship elections, simply because the voter turnout now moved from 10 point something percent to 21 point something percent. And when you look at all those numbers and the number of people who registered to vote, which was more than 2 million, then you seem to say that there was voter apathy in that election. What do you think will have caused that?
Absolutely. And I think this is a trend. If we look at the sequence of elections since 1999, there has been a decline, even in the general election, and more so in the governorship elections.
Yeah.
And then it calls to mind what the challenges are, just like you said. There are the normative challenges, which are like the theoretical challenges, which we usually allude to whenever issues like this are propped up. One of them is the issue of the economic impact of the democracy, what we call democratic dividends.
Yeah.
Because again, and I always say this, when we were growing up under the military regime, there was always the talk about once we transition to democracy, there will be everything in abundance. So there is an association of economic prosperity with the presence of democracy.
Yeah.
Now, we've practiced democracy since 1999, and rather than see economic prosperity, we are seeing the reverse. So there is this disillusionment about the economic prospect of democracy, which, is something that could deter people from participating in the process. There is also the issue of voter education. There are various agencies saddled with the responsibility of conducting voter education. But I think one of the very key agencies that, in my opinion, have not lived up to expectation are the political parties.
Definitely.
Yes, because they are the ones canvassing for votes. Now, the manner these votes are being canvassed for has a lasting impression or motivation on the citizens. In fact, from what we saw in Anambra, they would rather wait on election day to incentivize people to vote rather than, implement those voter mobilization initiative ahead of time.
Don't you think is like we understand our people? This is what they would rather have than a sort of thing, because there were also people in Anambra who came out with their voters card, and when they saw that this money is not worth it, they went back.
Which again falls into the narrative that the governance has failed.
Yeah.
And again, the parties have also failed to conduct that voter mobilization that ought to have been conducted. Once we see individuals coming to look for gratification before they perform their civic responsibility, that means someone has failed to perform his responsibility. And I think the political parties have a larger chunk of the blame. Of course, INEC, the electoral umpire, has a role to play in this. There is the National Orientation Agency and even civil society, donor. But I think political parties who are the real vanguard and the beneficiaries of elections have a role to play. Then I also think we should sometimes also look beyond these normative excuses and investigate or interrogate the figures that are churned out from these voter registration exercises. Number one, how thorough is the cleanup of the voter register? Because again, I think I was trying to look around, and perhaps the last time we saw a deliberate voter cleanup exercise was in 2011. So between 2011 and now, new names are just being added to existing names. Some of them have left us to glory. Some have transitioned to other countries. Some have relocated and are unwilling to change their new locations and things like that. So it means we may end up having a huge number in the voter register who are not necessarily available to vote.
Yeah, I totally agree with the last point of transfers. A lot of people relocate and do not actually move their voter register.
And then they find the process of changing it cumbersome.
Yeah, but it's not. The thing is, right now, as we speak, the civil process is going on, which encompasses transfer of your PVCs from one state to another. And if you're listening and you've not done that, please do that.
Again, that falls back to the initial challenge. When we were growing up, I wouldn't know if the name of the agency was the NOA, but they were vans. We saw vans moving from rural settlement streets to streets with their loudspeaker at the top of it was these small jeeps. We saw them. So messages were being passed across, and they
like Mamsa.
Yeah, exactly. And they shared information in languages that ordinary citizens could understand, local languages. So everyone would understand, everyone would, get those information. That is rarely seen now.
There's also been that argument again for the NOA, who people feel are a propaganda agency for the government in power. So, for instance, if the government has a particular policy that they wish to push out, so that's what the agency pushes out and things like that. Because when it comes to voter education now, we see less and less and less of that job being carried out by NOA. It seems to have fallen squarely on INEC. However, INEC itself has these limitations.
It's overburdened, absolutely. So yes, I agree with you on the role of NOA, but again, isn't it in the interest of the government for citizens to come out to participate?
Civic education is definitely in the interest. I mean, just the sheer part of people knowing that it is their right to vote,
participate.
I have to do this because I am entitled to it. Yeah.
And again, this also questions the role of political parties, right? If we're in a multi-party democracy, that means other parties should be there to provide alternative. So if NOA is preaching the policy of the government of the day, the political party should also be there to amplify the alternative. And all this, you raise all this concern, and that leads the people to decide which alternative is better. Is it the one of the government in power, or is it the one that the government in opposition or the party in opposition is preaching? So there should be all this information coming to the citizens to help them, to decide on what to choose on election day. But when citizens are left with no information, you will be surprised when we got to Anambra. There were quite a number of them who knew that there would be election, but they didn't feel obliged to want to participate in the process.
That ties back to your very first comment on the impact of democracy.
Absolutely.
Because very common sentiments we hear, my vote does not count. Politicians are all
they just do what they want to do.
The process is stressful or not safe. I mean, we've sort of crossed that part now, but it still comes back, logistics. So
one other thing I want to highlight is what I saw in Ghana. as they were preparing for their general elections in 2024. During the voter registration exercise, I saw that the Electoral Commission actually accredited party agents to observe the voter registration process. And they allow party agents to take record of citizens who registered. They took their name, took their location, and took their phone numbers. And when we tried to interrogate what that was meant for, they said, oh, we could use this to send them messages, campaign messages, voter mobilization messages, civic education messages. So in that case, it would help the parties to be able to reach to as many persons who have registered as possible using SMS, social media platform, whatever it is. So you imagine you are in your house on election day or 2 days, 3 days prior to the election, and you are receiving messages, re-emphasizing the fact that there will be election and re-emphasizing the fact that you need to come out to vote. Even if it is a campaign tilted message, it will still boil down to the fact that you need to come out to vote. So I thought that's something that we should try to replicate in Nigeria. I came back here and I tried to observe the ongoing CVR, but I saw that it's only the Electoral Commission that is up and about doing it. I haven't even had political parties talk about it.
No, they don't. So they are fighting.
Exactly. So it leaves more to be desired from their side. In Ghana, it was a huge thing. The parties will bus people from their various locations, various houses, various villages to the nearest voter registration center, provide canopy. In fact, in some places, provide them food. Just to encourage them to participate in the process. So I thought that is also good. And by having party agents, track the number of those who are able to register, then you can also authenticate whatever the Electoral Commission announces as the number of those who have registered. And by you also reaching out to these individuals is another way of ensuring that as many persons that have registered also comes out to vote on election day. So I think there are so many things that we also have to look at in order to address voter apathy.
I totally agree with you, and these are very good points that you raise, because internal party democracy in Nigeria is such an issue, and you hear a lot of young people saying, I don't want to be part of a party simply because of how political parties are being run in the country. And for me, I always say, look, being a politician is also a career. You have to start from the ranks. The same way that people have to
start their work
from the lower organ. It's the same way. You can't not be part of a system and then you come one day and say, oh, I want to be part of it. So you see people who start from being councillor, go to the state house and things like that. And so it's not encouraging when we see that the political parties are actually keeping out a percentage of people who should form one of the hugest blocks of our governance.
And what you said is apt. Again, would push back to the political parties. In Ghana, I have to cite Ghana.
I agree, you have to, because you've been there for a while. Yes.
The political parties do have very solid, very effective youth wings. And these youth wings, they have developed the competence and the capacity to administer themselves, by themselves, and for themselves. So there are various affiliate bodies to the youth wing. Those in the university, those in various kind of trades, in different places. So the youth wing is organized such as to enable the youth to participate in the party. Effectively. And one thing that was very amusing for me was the fact that within the youth wing, they organize their own convention. They elect the president of the youth wing of the party, and the president automatically becomes the national youth organizer, what we call national youth leader in Nigeria. So for every meeting of the national executive committee, which they call the functional executive committee, he goes back to the executive of the youth wing, get inputs, go to the party main meeting, expresses whatever the youth wing says, and when they finish, he goes back to provide feedback. So what I'm trying to say is the parties have provided a room, a platform for the youth to participate actively within the party system itself. And for every national or even regional level party position, the deputy must be from the youth wing. The intention is to provide mentorship of opportunity. And with time, we've seen over time where those who were the deputies eventually became the standard bearer because they've been mentored.
Yes.
So it's a leadership assimilation process. The youth wing serves as the hub where they are trained, their capacity is built, where they see what happens in the party. They try to mimic it at their own wing level, and then eventually they get integrated into the main party system. And I think this is something our parties here should also try to emulate. This current system where you only give room for one young person, which most times is not a young person, to become youth leader.
Yeah, I think that has changed. I think that has changed now. There's more awareness on that age, restriction of 18 to 35.
Just like when you have one woman being the woman leader in the room of 20,
that too is changing.
And then you have one young guy in the mid. How much policy do you want to push?
You can't push a lot, to be honest. And when you were speaking about the youth wing in Ghana, I'm saying this is a system that is deliberate about inclusion.
Absolutely.
So there's a way for you to rise,
Yes.
youthful. They've taken that into consideration, yes. The participation of young people in the parties and ultimately in governance and of course the political process.
Absolutely.
So my next question will be, what is the implication of this apathy of young people?
I think you rightly mentioned it in your introduction. As we are progressing as a country, we are witnessing a bulging youth demographic. What that means is, in as much as these youth are excluded from the process, then the process will continually lack legitimacy. Secondly, you are also excluding those that will eventually be the future of democracy in this country. Because it is through their participation that they acquire the sophistication, to eventually be the practitioners when their time is there. So, on one breath, there's a problem of legitimacy. Imagine a state electing a governor with 10% of the registered voters. And we are applauding what has happened in Anambra, where we only have 20%.
Yeah. For me, the success is that it
doubled.
It doubled.
Yes.
It now puts them on the average
pedestal
of off-cycle elections. Yeah. So if you go to Edo, you go to Ondo, they are all in
like
the 20s.
Yeah, you hover around 20, 25.
Over
so now
around that.
They've gone into
this thing.
But I also think we should investigate what the government did or what stakeholders did that made them achieve that leap. I think that was a very big bound between from 10% to 20%. Perhaps we should look at what happened that made that possible, if it's something we can replicate.
Oh yeah, in our last episode of this podcast, we did speak about lessons from Anambra and the kind of mobilization that some civil society organizations did around the elections, and again some of the insecurity issues were being worked on prior to the election. And I think all of that just sort of gave it that peaceful atmosphere that encouraged
which we saw actually. I think we
saw definitely. It was not even like an election was going on when you compare it to 2021 or 2017. So again, we saw young people playing football on the streets. Many of them still do not trust that the system works for them. That sentiment is still there. There's still a lot of public distrust in our institutions. And that's one of the things our statement mentioned, that although it was very, very peaceful, it was marred by that sentiment. When you ask people and they say to you, I don't trust that my votes count, and things like that. And I think that as we head towards 2027, those are the things that we need to say to people. For me, 2023, a lot of young people were expectant and you not getting the results of what you expected in the election does not mean that you should abandon it.
Which boils down to political education.
Yeah.
And I think we should make the young persons to realize that politics is just like football. You would see that there is that open-heartedness to the outcome of football games, right? There's always that belief that, if I lose, it's fine. And players even demonstrate it. If you lose, you still come around, you shake hands with those who've won. I think we should begin to bring that spirit into politics.
Yeah.
It's a win-win. It should be a win-win for everyone. The fact that you have lost election doesn't mean you should be bitter about it. Again, I think another point I would like to stress is the fact that we should begin to endear our young population to the governance process. That goes back to the issue of local governance, right? For example, let's have elections at the local government level. Let's have these young ones participate actively at the local government. Councillor position, leave it for them. Let them participate. Let them be actors in the space, so that they will appreciate it. There's a domino effect when a young man sees his colleague, his age mate, doing something. He feels attracted to it. He feels encouraged by it.
He feels, I can do it.
Yeah, he feels, this is one of me.
Exactly.
Yeah, but when it's aloof, like it's the same set of names you've been hearing since you're born, how does that come to me?
Right now, what we have at the local government level seems like a selection process more than an election. However, I still advocate that be part of that selection process. Do you own a card? Are you a card carrying member of a party? How do you want to participate? Okay, if you're not interested in that aspect, you're interested in voting, you're interested in advocating for things that strengthen, things like that, but you just cannot not be involved.
But it's a circle, right? It's a circle. So I vote in this election circle. Within the next 4 years, what happens to me? There is no one I can reach within those who are elected to even interface with.
Okay.
Right? But then if after the election cycle, there are contemporaries that, will just come to my house to visit me, and I ask him, how is governance? He tells me, it's interesting. I'll be like, okay, this is something we can do. But then after 4 years, nothing happens to me. I don't feel it. I don't see it. I don't hear it. And then you come back singing the same ringtone. Go and vote again. I'll be like, this thing is distant from me. So I still think more room should be provided, for young persons to really access this political space. And one surest way of doing that is through the local government. Allow this democracy to trickle down to the local government level. Let's end this election thing. Let's give space. And for me, the collateral damage is minimal at the local government level. Whatever consequence will come out of it is minimal. So let's enable as many young persons as possible to participate in that space, and then that will serve as a booster for them to participate at the higher electoral levels. But you don't keep them static and then expect them to be giving you results. It's not going to work. The same thing with the political party, right? Open the space. I was telling you about the youth wing. Immediately the current government was elected, came into office in January. The president of the NDC youth wing became the minister for youth. So you could see the progression. And this is a stimulant for those who are in the space to say, there is a space for me. If I do well, there's a space for me. But when you are the space is not even provided for you, and you struggle to squeeze yourself into the space, no one recognizes you. Then it's discouraging.
It is discouraging. And we are now talking about changing the story. So what else can be done?
So to capture the interest of the young persons, political parties need to be open. Political parties need to provide real structures that will enable the effective participation of young people. In the course of my work, some times back, we went to have a town hall meeting, and the ward leader who we went to meet, when he came out of his house, that man is older than 80 years. And he confessed to us that he has been pleading that they should take away the responsibility from him. But for some reasons, the parties have insisted on keeping these old ones in these positions. So, opening the space for me, especially at the lower level where the damage is minimal, let the ward officials of the party be the young persons. Right? Let them serve. I think there's a party that even has a polling unit structure. Let the officials at that polling, let them be young persons between 18 to 35 years. That will be a huge boost for their participation. And then also create spaces for them as they go up. I was telling you of Ghana, every deputy position at the regional level, because they don't have states, they have region, at the regional and at the national level of the political party is reserved for young people. So that it's in itself, encourages young people to want to participate. When you see your contemporary holding a very high office. But here is the same name that we've been hearing since 1999 that is being regurgitated. So political parties have the role to play because they are the channel, for political leadership.
Yeah.
So they must demonstrate inclusion. You can't give what you don't have. So you don't expect a party that is not inclusive to get into government and become inclusive. The party itself must demonstrate inclusiveness. And I think that is very critical. That is one. Secondly is the issue of the transparency and the credibility of the electoral process. Now, judging from what we saw in Anambra, judging from the reports from observers, we saw how the collation process, in fact, the results were uploaded on IREF in record time. There was no complaint. Now, if these processes are seen to be transparent, they are seen to be credible, it gives confidence. It endears trust among the citizens to want to participate.
Sure.
And then it kills this growing notion of, whatever I do, whatever I vote doesn't count. It kills that notion. It kills that impression. Perhaps the elephant in the room is the issue of the economic benefits of our democracy. It would appear as if we only line up to give tickets to a few people to access the public till, to access our public purse. So they enter into prosperity where we still remain in our economic doldrum. So I think government should pay attention.
Yeah, I think that's
to the welfare of citizens.
It's actually, that conversation is so large because young people can do so much and they are doing so much tech, entertainment. But I worry that a lot of people are fixated on those things. And the reason why is because that is what they see. So people go through 4 years of university, 5, 6, and don't do the courses that they read. So medicine, law, all those core professional courses where we still even need expertise are being abandoned. We're having this conversation because as we head to 2027, we're also going to x-ray the possibilities of how the numbers can improve from 2023 general elections to what we have currently. And I was looking at a Business Day report recently, I think it was dated 6th of October or so, where they talked about how young people have made up, so there are about 4.4 million registered voters in the ongoing CVR. I know as at the time of first 4 weeks of the CVR process, there were about 4.4 million registered voters. And out of that number, you have about 2 point something who are 18 to 35 and another 1 point something who are 18. And, a lot of people have expressed optimism that it will translate to turnout. Yeah. So what do you think?
So if you cast back at 2023, we had about 91 million registered voters, and just about 20-something million came out to vote. So having that huge outpour does not necessarily translate.
No, it does not.
And the reasons are obvious. The reasons are very, very obvious. One of the things I always say is we have a system where registration is conducted when schools are opened. Most times, university students registered on campuses or voting units or registration units close to their campuses. And during elections, these universities are shut. These institutions are shut down. And they are forced to travel back home. In fact, most parents are more comfortable having their children with them during elections.
I know.
Because of the prospect of or anticipation of election violence. So if you registered in your school and you have to be at home during election, you're automatically disenfranchised. And you look at that huge number, And we're also having a conversation around even the utility of the voter register, the card, the voter register card.
Yeah.
Some people only register because they want to use it as a means of identification.
Yeah, it's the cheapest, most available for them.
Getting the international passport is beyond their reach.
Terrible.
So they just, and you want to open a bank account, you need an identification. So you just go for the one that is the cheapest. And they circulate this information among themselves.
Yes.
You want an ID, go register with INEC. So, but again, we can turn this around. If, for example, we are now able to have the parties to focus on issues that will stimulate the interest of these young people, campaign based on issues that will interest these young persons on one hand, and we saw it in 2023. There was a whole lot of build-up of anxiety, a whole lot of build-up of excitement, a lot of build-up of optimism among young persons because of the prospect they saw, That is one. Secondly, the outcome of the election. If the outcome of the election does not tend to, build or key into the built-up expectation of these young persons, it has a way of dampening their interests. So it will take another time, another electoral cycle to boost their interests. And we've talked about the issue of what comes to them as individuals. I would be in the university, instead of spending 4 years, I'm spending 6 years, I'm spending 5 years, and you're asking the same me, to go and queue up to vote. It doesn't tally. Some graduate 2 years, 3 years, no job. It doesn't work. And then you expect the same me to give up time to. But again, if properly messaged, these are the people that should really go out there.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I think parents play a key role in this messaging as well, because some of us grew up in homes where we spoke about Nigeria, governance, how to do better and things like that. But now we're at a point, like you rightly mentioned, where parents will be like, come home and sit down. So, come home, but ensure that while they're at home,
they
participate in the process. Encourage them, mention to them that it is this that shapes their future, is this that shapes the policies that come out. And we just can't leave it and say that, because we're not getting anything out of it, we're not going to keep doing it. Democracy, it's a continuous process. And that's what we're saying. In our last episode, talking about Anambra, reform is not a one-day event. It presents an opportunity every time.
Unfortunately, the guardians of our political space, they are aware of this and they take advantage of it. In fact, I think in the 2023 election, I had at a point that government was contemplating the necessity of shutting down the schools because they had seen that the young persons, especially those in the university, had a preference for a particular candidate. So it will be in the interest of the government in power to shut down the school and disenfranchise them. So what I'm trying to say is sometimes it could be deliberate. It could be, an attempt by those in government to sabotage whatever political interests the youth demography we want to project. So the youth demography should also be conscious of that and not allow themselves play into the playbook of these politicians.
Well, as you have heard, do not fall into the playbook of politicians. And as a country, we stand at a crossroads right now. And Nigeria's youthful population is not a burden. It is our greatest democratic assets. But these assets only become powerful when converted into turnout. And so I want to thank Mr. Sunday Alao for his thoughts on this issue and for being a very, very insightful guest and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so as we move to the 2027 elections and beyond, the question is simple. Will young Nigerians sit out or will they shape the future they keep talking about? Don't forget, democracy works best when everyone shows up. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Elections and State of the Nation. Don't forget to like, share on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, or X now, YouTube, and of course, just follow us on our websites and all our platforms. Thank you.